Story number 1. The Bell Witch of Tennessee. John Bell and his family lived in Robertson County, Tennessee, near the town of Adams. Though some might argue that Robertson County isn't technically in Appalachia, I think it's close enough, and this story is interesting, so we're going with it. John relocated his family from North Carolina to a 320-acre farm in Tennessee in 1804. For many years, they lived peacefully on this farm, but that all changed in 1817, when one day John noticed a strange animal out in his fields. It had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. John shot at this strange creature, but it disappeared. Over the coming months, John's children also began to witness strange apparitions appearing on their property. Drew Bell tried approaching a bird of extraordinary size before it flew away, and Betsy Bell saw a girl in a green dress swinging from the branch of an oak tree. It's thought that these strange sightings were that of the Bell Witch. From here, the antics of the Bell Witch escalated. The family claimed to hear haunting sounds in their home that sounded like chains dragging the floor, dog fights, and things gnawing at their bedside. They could also hear voices speaking directly to them. The witch seemed to have a particular hatred for John Bell and his daughter Betsy, as Betsy was slapped, pinched, and stuck with pins by the witch. Strangely, the Bell Witch didn't seem to carry the same disdain for Lucy, John Bell's wife, or his sons. Once word got out about this witch, people just had to see this thing for themselves. People started camping out on the Bell property by the hundreds to get a glimpse of the Bell Witch. A few of them left with haunting accounts of their own. The story of the Bell Witch came to a head when she vowed to kill John Bell 3 years after beginning her reign of terror on the family. On December 20th, 2020, John was found dead with a vial of poison at his side. His death was officially attributed to the Bell Witch, making Tennessee the only state to recognize a person's passing as supernatural. A year later, in 1821, poor Betsy was so tormented by the witch that she called off her engagement to a local man, Joshua Gardner. Old Stone Church's haunted grave. Moving on to another witchy tale, our next ghost story brings us to Old Stone Church in Clemson, South Carolina, at the foot of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Folks say that this church is home to a haunted grave site that no plants will grow on. The grave also attracts lightning. It is shattered where there should be a name, the name of the woman resting eternally there, 6 feet below. Legend says this woman is from the low country of South Carolina, and her name is Eliza Huger. The walls around her grave have been built and rebuilt because of the lighting that has struck her resting place time and time again. Locals say that you can toss a coin on her grave for good luck, but that taking one is a fool's errand that one might regret. I don't know about y'all, but I'd much rather toss a coin to Miss Huger than try taking one from her grave. Eliza Huger is also known as the Queen Witch of Clemson. Though little is known about how she lived and died, there are legends that have made her quite infamous. According to some of the legends, Eliza was born to a wealthy family in Charleston, SC. She found her way out to New Orleans, where she was supposedly a bit of a wild child. Some versions of the legend say that 2 of her brothers went out that way to bring her back home. However, they found her there in a brothel, working with a client. They shot and killed her and brought her body back home. Allegedly, due to the unseemly circumstances of her death, Eliza was not welcome back home, so she was buried in the upstate. The brick walls were supposedly built around her grave to contain her sinful spirit. If the legends are true, y'all, I think that the shattered walls around Eliza's grave are a version of sweet revenge. Even in death, they can't seem to contain her. The Phantom Heaper of Grandfather Mountain. Our final ghost tale takes us to the high country in North Carolina to Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain and the surrounding geography have some of the most awe-inspiring vistas in the Appalachian Mountains, in my humble opinion. Sitting as a patriarch above the land, Grandfather Mountain has inspired travelers for ages. Adventurers come from far and wide to ascend its lofty peaks, take in the splendor of nature, and enjoy the incredible beauty of the area. In fact, Grandfather Mountain is so alluring that many hikers might not want to leave once experiencing its grandeur, which seems to be the case of the Phantom Hiker of Grandfather Mountain. The Phantom is said to be an older, rough-around-the-edges man with a beard, dressed in working man's attire that's not of modern times. Some say it looks as though he's from the mid-1900s or so. He's got a walking stick, a canvas pack, and those who have seen him say that he just minds his own business and hikes along the trail. In fact, most folks don't seem to realize that he's a ghost until he vanishes up ahead into thin air. As most accounts go, the Phantom hikes quickly along the trail, passes by other hikers without any acknowledgement, and then poof, he's gone. Usually, people tend to see him around dusk. So, who is he? Many folks believe that he's a hiker who got lost in the woods, couldn't find his way out, and possibly died. Others figure it's the spirit of a man who just loved Grandfather Mountain and chose to stay on the mountain after he passed on. He doesn't seem to want any harm, just to hike along the trail of this beloved place. I really can't blame him, y'all. One day when my soul has gone out into the great beyond, I think it would be fine and dandy to claim a trail as a resting place. I hope you enjoyed these ghostly stories.
Story number 2, The Phantom Hiker of Grandfather Mountain. Our final ghost tale takes us to the high country in North Carolina to Grandfather Mountain. Grandfather Mountain and the surrounding geography have some of the most awe-inspiring vistas in the Appalachian Mountains, in my humble opinion. Sitting as a patriarch above the land, Grandfather Mountain has inspired travelers for ages. Adventurers come from far and wide to ascend its lofty peaks, take in the splendor of nature, and enjoy the incredible beauty of the area. In fact, Grandfather Mountain is so alluring that many hikers might not want to leave once experiencing its grandeur, which seems to be the case of the Phantom Hiker of Grandfather Mountain. The Phantom is said to be an older, rough-around-the-edges man with a beard, dressed in working man's attire that's not of modern times. Some say it looks as though he's from the mid-1900s or so. He's got a walking stick, a canvas pack, and those who have seen him say that he just minds his own business and hikes along the trail. In fact, most folks don't seem to realize that he's a ghost until he vanishes up ahead into thin air. As most accounts go, the Phantom hikes quickly along the trail, passes by other hikers without any acknowledgement, and then poof, he's gone. Usually, people tend to see him around dusk. So who is he? Many folks believe that he's a hiker who got lost in the woods, couldn't find his way out, and possibly died. Others figure that it's the spirit of a man who just loved Grandfather Mountain and chose to stay on the mountain after he passed on. He doesn't seem to want any harm, just to hike along the trail of this beloved place. I really can't blame him, y'all. One day when my soul has gone out into the great beyond, I think it would be fine and dandy to claim a trail as a resting place. I hope you enjoy these ghostly stories. Story number 3, The Cabin on Widow's Peak. I never thought a simple hiking trip in the Appalachian Mountains would change my life forever. I've always loved the serenity of the mountains, the way the mist clings to the peaks in the early morning, the scent of pine needles underfoot, and the quiet that feels almost sacred. But that quiet hides something. I didn't know it then. It started in late October, when the air had just begun to carry that crisp bite of autumn. I had driven from my hometown in Pennsylvania to the Appalachians for a weekend getaway. I wasn't planning anything crazy, just some hiking, reading by a campfire, and disconnecting from the world. I rented a small cabin tucked away near a ridge called Widow's Peak. The name itself gave me pause, but I shrugged it off. Tourists love dramatic names, right? The cabin was isolated, miles from the nearest town, surrounded by dense forest that seemed to swallow the sunlight. I parked my car, unloaded my bag, and stepped inside. The place smelled like aged wood and old smoke. The previous tenants had left a small stack of firewood, and there was a journal on the table with a faded leather cover. I glanced at it, but decided to save it for later. The first night was peaceful enough. I lit the fireplace, cooked a small dinner, and watched the shadows dance on the walls. By 11 p.m., a thick fog rolled in, blanketing the mountains and swallowing the forest in silence. That's when I first heard it, soft, deliberate steps outside. At first I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer, but the sound was too measured. It walked like a person, pacing slowly, circling the cabin. I froze, listening. The wind carried a whisper, almost intelligible. My heart raced. I checked the windows. They were all locked. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just the creaking of the old cabin, or maybe a raccoon. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear it, soft thuds, then silence, then a whisper. The next morning I found marks in the mud outside the cabin, footprints, barefoot too, smaller than mine, and leading in a circle around the cabin before vanishing into the forest. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to brush it off again. Maybe kids from the town had wandered up, or maybe I was overreacting. By the second night, things escalated. I had started reading the journal I found. It belonged to a man named Thomas Reed, who had lived in the cabin decades ago. His entries were normal at first, describing hiking trails and hunting trips, but as I read further, the tone shifted. He wrote about hearing footsteps outside his cabin at night, whispers in the wind, shadows moving across the forest when no one was there. He called it The Watcher, and warned anyone who found the journal to leave before it got too close. I laughed nervously at first, thinking it was just old superstition. But then, at around 1 a.m., I heard scratching on the cabin door. It was deliberate, slow, almost taunting. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The fog was thick, and I could barely see the trees 50 feet away. Nothing moved, but the sense of being watched was overwhelming. I felt eyes on me from every direction.
I tried calling my phone, thinking maybe I'd contact someone if something went wrong. No signal, just dead silence. Panic started to set in, but I told myself I'd stay calm. I had come here to be alone, hadn't I? This was solitude, not fear. Then I heard it, a voice, soft and raspy, coming from the edge of the forest. "Leave now." It was faint, but unmistakable. I froze. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The fog swirled, and in the distance I saw a figure. Just a shadow at first, then a hunched shape emerging from the mist. It didn't run, didn't move quickly, it just glided. I bolted inside and slammed the door, heart hammering. I remembered Thomas Reed's warning. It follows the curious. It waits for the lone. It feeds on doubt. The words echoed in my head. I spent the rest of the night sitting by the fireplace, clutching the journal like a lifeline. Every sound outside made me jump. Morning brought no relief. I wanted to leave immediately, but the fog hadn't lifted. When I finally stepped outside, I noticed something chilling. The footprints from last night were back, circling the cabin again, but now they led straight into the forest. I didn't see the figure, but the imprint of its presence was undeniable. I packed my things and drove down the winding mountain road. Even as the cabin faded from view, I felt like I was being followed. Over the next few days, I kept hearing faint whispers in my dreams, and sometimes in the quiet moments at work, I swore I could hear someone pacing behind me. I tried to rationalize it: mountain stress, fatigue, imagination, but deep down I knew it wasn't over. Weeks later, I did some research on Widow's Peak. I found local legends about the area, stories of a solitary figure that roams the mountains, sometimes seen by hikers, sometimes only heard in the wind. Some people called it the Widow, others the Watcher. People who stayed too long in the isolated cabins often disappeared or left in terror. The journal I found, it was real. Thomas Reed had vanished one winter, leaving only that journal behind. No one knew exactly why. I've never gone back. The Appalachian Mountains still call to me, their serene beauty still tempting, but I can't ignore the memory of those foggy nights, the whispers, and the feeling that someone or something was always watching. I can't explain it, but I know what I experienced was real. And sometimes, when the wind howls through the trees on a quiet night, I swear I hear a faint whisper, reminding me of Widow's Peak and warning me to never return. Some things in the mountains are meant to be left alone. Some secrets aren't meant to be discovered. And some watchers never stop watching.